Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. American Pickers star Frank Fritz's antiques, including his motorcycle collection, to be auctioned off after tragic death. Frank was a longtime collector of motorcycles, vintage steins and other antiques, as he even owned antique store Frank Fritz Finds in Savannah, Illinois. In an exclusive interview with the U.S. Sun, Frank's longtime friend Jerry Gendreau revealed what will happen to the American Pickers star's beloved antiques. They're going to have an auction. That's what I would do because of his fan base. I think he'll do really well with an auction. In one of Frank's outhouses on the property, Frank showed off rows of motorcycles from his personal collection. Through the years, viewers of American Pickers have watched Frank purchase items from vintage signs to antique mannequins. Jerry previously told the U.S. Sun some of the bikes will be displayed at his store. Jerry told the U.S. Sun in October, "We have been an antique store for 35 years. We'll probably continue to be that. We may display motorcycles and choppers that represent Frank. Right now it's set up as an 1880s general store. Maybe there'll be bikes on a rack all the way down the center. We're trying to contemplate what other people want me to do." Frank Fritz Finds sells small antiques from $35 oil cans to a $30 vintage typewriter. Frank wasn't as involved in the business after he suffered the stroke in July 2022 at his Iowa home. Frank's friends filed an emergency appointment of a temporary guardian and conservator for the star on August 18, claiming his decision-making capacity is so impaired from the stroke. The conservatorship papers obtained by the U.S. Sun revealed plans for the store during his health battle. The initial plan filed by conservator Midwestone Bank read, "Mr. Fritz is a well-known collector and has numerous outbuildings full of valuable collections. The conservator has not yet inventoried those items but plans to leave them largely as they are now, with the exception of stocking Mr. Fritz's antique store in Savannah, IL as needed. Conservator is hopeful Frank will be able to participate in selection and pricing of items as he did previously." Frank left American Pickers in 2020 to undergo back surgery. He never returned and was officially let go in 2021, despite fan outrage over the cast shakeup. Mike's brother Robbie replaced Frank on the show, while Jersey John Chalet later became a full-time cast member. Frank revealed his feud with Mike, 59, during an interview with the U.S. Sun in 2021. Frank said, "I haven't talked to Mike in 2 years. He knew my back was messed up, but he didn't call me up and ask how I was doing. That's just how it is." The show is tilted towards him 1000%. "I can't even bend that far down to show you how much." "That's fine. It's like you've got Aerosmith and there's Steven Tyler, and he's the frontman. I found my spot, I'm second, and he's number one on the show. That's no problem with me. Maybe he does have a problem." The stroke left Frank wheelchair-bound as he was in rehabilitation. He can walk, but he's always going to need the wheelchair because he can't walk long distances, a source previously told the U.S. Sun in August 2023. "Basically, you lose motion." He lost motion. "A stroke can affect your left or your right side. It affected his right side." Jerry previously gave insight into Frank's health struggles in the months before his passing. "He felt really bad," he told previously the U.S. Sun. "You would go to see him in the nursing home and one half of his body was completely done. He would lift his arm up and it would just drop. That's got to be tough to be totally bedridden." Jerry explained how Frank grew frustrated because he couldn't come out and say what he wanted to say, though some days were much better than others. "I've seen this when people get tired, they get tired. I think if you don't have the will to live, you won't," Jerry said. "I think Frank could have lived a lot longer if the will to live would have been there." Mike and Frank ended their feud during his health issues and reunited over Memorial Day weekend of 2023. Mike was by his side in hospice when he passed, along with other loved ones. On a cool autumn morning, the quiet murmur of eager bidders gathered around the sprawling lawns of Frank Fritz's antique emporium. News of his passing had hit the collector community hard, a palpable loss for fans of American Pickers, who had followed his every discovery, his every find with awe. Now, for perhaps one last time, they had gathered to pay tribute to his life's work by taking home a piece of his cherished collection. Among the treasures to be auctioned was Frank's renowned motorcycle collection, a testament to his fierce passion for the open road, vintage craftsmanship, and the stories embedded in each machine. The auction was a meticulously curated event. Organizers had set up the display to mirror Frank's own eclectic style, organized chaos, some might say. Each item had a tag attached, detailing its history and Frank's notes on its importance, often peppered with his characteristic humor and a touch of sentimentality. Frank's motorcycles gleamed in the morning sun, each a masterpiece from a different era, its age a badge of honor rather than a burden. First on the block was a 1912 Harley-Davidson Silent Gray Fellow. Frank had acquired it after years of searching, and it remained one of his proudest finds. The bike's leather seat was worn from over a century of use, yet its frame stood proudly, a testament to the durability of early Harley craftsmanship. The audience hushed as the auctioneer spoke of how Frank had driven this very bike around the countryside on warm Sunday afternoons, taking in the landscape he loved. The bidding was feverish, starting at $30,000 and quickly escalating. As the hammer fell, the lucky new owner was left clutching his paddle, beaming at the chance to own such a piece of history. Next came a row of Indians, the pride of Frank's collection. Each bike had a unique story, often picked from the obscure corners of forgotten garages, barns, and workshops. There was a 1947 Indian chief, whose original owner had been a daredevil stunt rider. Frank had once shared how he envisioned the chief's owner tearing across dirt tracks, kicking up dust as crowds cheered. Its bright red paint, freshly polished, glowed like embers. Bidders were enthralled, and a fierce bidding war ensued. The chief went for a record-breaking $80,000, a fitting tribute to its rich past. One particularly unique bike was a Triumph Bonneville T120, the embodiment of 1960s cool. It bore a sense of nostalgia, a link to Frank's younger days when motorcycles represented rebellion and freedom. Frank had bought it from a collector who had stashed it away for decades, refusing to part with it until Frank's charm and tenacity won him over. He would talk about the Bonneville with a twinkle in his eye, admiring its streamlined design and unmatched engineering. As the bids for the Triumph reached sky-high numbers, one bidder, a young man with a leather jacket, won the final call and strolled forward, visibly awed by his new acquisition. But it wasn't just the motorcycles that drew in the crowd, it was the fragments of history that Frank had paired with them: helmets from World War II, vintage leather jackets, an old travelogue filled with notes and sketches. One item, a well-worn helmet with a faint, healing decal, attracted particular interest. Frank had worn it during his early days of picking, traveling across state lines in search of rare finds. Bidding started modestly, but when someone mentioned its sentimental value, the competition heated up. The helmet sold for a surprising $5,000, leaving its new owner misty-eyed, knowing they held a piece of Frank's adventurous spirit. The crowd moved into the next lot, which showcased Frank's trove of Petroliana, vintage oil cans, gas pumps, neon signs, and more. This was a favorite among the hardcore pickers and collectors. Frank had always gravitated to the stories behind these items. They were reminders of a time when the world moved a little slower, when gas stations dotted the rural highways, their lights guiding weary travelers home. His collection included a 1930s Shell gasoline pump, impeccably restored to its original glory, and an array of signs that flickered with the history of Americana. As the auctioneer moved through the Petroliana, bidders nodded with admiration, reliving Frank's stories as they competed. Each item seemed to carry his voice, recounting the tales of small-town America he had so lovingly brought to life.